which is pretty exciting.
That's so cool. Like, how can we empower people to do what they need to do without relying on somebody else? That's really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
it would be fantastic, wouldn't it? It would open up so much for the smaller individuals or the people just starting out that have no money to sink into this. But they could be as high quality as a major corporation without having to pay thousands, which would be great.
Whoa, that's some big value add that we're going to talk about here today, guys. So thank you for our YouTube audience for joining in, and we have a link that we'll share if you want to with any communities or anybody that wants to join us today. But we have a really special guest, Sierra, and what I mean by that is we were talking with our podcast audience before we came on stream. And for anybody that wants to listen in on just more of the warm up and just more a friendly conversation before we kick up our stream, check us out on anchor.fm, Finding Beautiful Questions. And we always like to include that audience since, you're driving to work or other things along those lines. And you can check us out at any time. I'm going to share out a few links here to our Discord audience, and if you want to join us on Discord as well, you can ping us there. And for Advantage Design, where can people get a hold of the kind of awesomeness that we're about to talk about?
Well, currently our website's it's down and getting redone, but it'll be done at the end of the week. It's advantagedesign.ca.
AdvantageDesign.ca. So, well, thank you everyone for joining another episode of Finding Beautiful Questions. Today we are going to really get to explore that beautiful thing that somebody's doing to make some lives better. And the way we frame purpose here is we take your purpose, the idea of what you want to do for others, and let's frame that as a question, because in Buddhist temples, you'll notice there's a center of the temple. It's like a series of rings, like a Russian doll, right? And the rings get smaller and smaller, right? And there's a door at each ring, and you have to go all the way around the ring, and there's a wall, right? You can't go left, right? For example, you have to go right. You go all the way around the ring, and you have to go in the next layer, and then you go all the way around again to the wall. It actually starts forming a Fibonacci, right, with the walls, if you
Ah,
took an aerial view of it. And so when you get to the center, a lot of people think, like, imagine there's like a statue with a pillar, like Indiana Jones, there's a pressure switch underneath, and you got to switch the pressure switch or something like that, where it's actually, there's nothing at the center of the temple, and that represents a question to us. And I usually don't go into this length of explanation. However, a question doesn't have an answer, and it represents the idea of a start of nothingness, where you might go into something and you're like, wow, why is it this way in the world one day? Like, why does it have to be this way? And then you set a goal or surrender to the outcome of a calling or whatever people call it, and you just go do that to make lives better. That starts from nothing, and you almost have to get through those layers to get to those beautiful questions in life. And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And some people think there's more doors to new temples at the center. And you just have this infinite tract of temples, where at the last temple, there's only one door, right? And we have to get from this beginning of life to this end of life. And what is our legacy in between? So, wow. All right. I'm going to pause there. Sierra, thank you for joining us today.
of course, no worries. Thank you for having me.
So, what are you excited about? Let's expound upon that. We talked a little bit more about that. Tell us in the audience a little bit more about what you're excited about.
So, do you want to know my question or do you want to me go into detail?
Ooh, I love the question. If you want to jump right into it. So, what is that beautiful
Awesome.
question today?
Well, how can brands, without paying thousands of dollars, be able to align their brand and their company and their marketing, their policies without any effort, but to know how to do it automatically? That's my question. I think I have an answer.
So, how can people save some sanity and and not fail when they're in that space? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit more about that. So how did you come to such a beautiful question? Like, what was the point when you started thinking about that?
Well, I was actually in university and I was studying information design. And I noticed that all of my clients, like I could make something for them because they would hire me to make something, but it didn't necessarily align with their brand and it didn't align with their target market. And I thought they were wasting money for something that wouldn't actually help them, but they would insist because they didn't know any better. And so even if they didn't buy a branding package from a brander, they were still spending hundreds of dollars on useless materials because they didn't know any better. So that's when I started wondering, like these people are really struggling to get their company going. And is there something else that we could do that might help them get that going um, without taking away from their funds, you know?
That's pretty wild. So, what do you feel is was there like a story or sort of a moment that you want to share with us? Tell us a story.
Sure. So actually, one of my clients, when I first met them, they're called Rocky Point Academy. They're amazing. They work with dyslexia, ADD, autism. Their program is fantastic. It's the best program I've ever seen. And my father's autistic, so he went through them. Um, I found that even though they had the highest quality product I'd ever seen in the industry, I've also found that they weren't doing well, and no one could even remember their company name. No one could remember their logo. Even people who had been with them for years didn't recognize their company logo. And they were out here trying to buy stuff like email signatures and letterheads and trying to expose their logo more, when in reality, it was the wrong logo. It was one of those rare circumstances that you had to change the brand because it was unmemorable. And I remember there was a tipping point because they were going to pay me quite a bit to do quite a bit of design work for them. But there's always a point in your lifetime with your business that you're like, is it going to be worth it to take this and lose sleep because you know it's not going to work? And of course, the answer is no. So then I really tried to push them towards rebranding for as cheaply as possible before they put in all the effort and all the money into putting in more materials. And they did. And we came up with a specific thing. We call it vision. We kind of coined the term ourselves because we find it hard to pinpoint. I don't really see anyone else doing this. A lot of people will say it's brand, but it's not. And what vision is, it's boiling down your company down to 3 or 4 words, like everything about your company, everything about your company's persona into 3 or 4 words. And then after that, we aligned every design decision, every policy, every customer relation, everything aligned with those 4 or 3 words. And we found out they were making decisions on their own automatically in a cohesive brand. Their sales went up 30%. I believe I actually told you about them earlier. From having almost no business within a month to 30% uprise, and now they're completely booked. They're full all the time. And people remember their name, they remember their logo, because they remember the experience. It's not a bunch of different pieces of information here or here. It's all one piece. It's cohesive. So they remember it now. And I always use that question with my clients. It's a little bit of a system where we get them to narrow it down to 3 or 4 words. But I find that their decisions become incredibly easy to make for them, and everything just aligns. Um, yeah, that's kind of the story of how this got started. And I think it's genius that they came up with that. But I think I've got to be the one that spreads it, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. So, just so we have that clear in our minds, you guys coined a term named vision, in which you encourage them to do is focus on the brand before you spend more on resources. And
Yes.
this is where I feel as though I'm a little unclear, so you have to clarify me, is because of that alignment on 3 words, it sounded like their decisions became more intuitively aligned to those
Yes.
words. Can you give us a little
Yes.
more there?
Okay. So maybe to explain this a little better, I'll walk you through what it is. So we take a list of 500 adjectives, like just descriptive words. And we lay them out for them. And they can't spend more than half a second on each word. It's got to be a gut feeling. And they go down the list and they say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no to everything they think applies to the company they want. After that, they take about 5 minutes, no more. It's very intuitive. The process is intuitive. It has to be because your gut knows what you want, right? They narrow that down to 10 words. And then we take about half an hour, narrow it down to 3 or 4 words, and change those words. So, say you chose intelligence, but you want a simpler company. So, you call it smart, right? So, you might change the word a little bit. Once you have those 4 things outlaid, we put them up on a board. And once they're up on that board, we start aligning everything. So you go through your company policy. Is this smart? So if your words were smart, aesthetically pleasing, simple, easy, right? Say those were your 4 words. You would align your policy with it. So does this policy make your company smart, easy, beautiful? And they align every single little piece with it. So when they go through their customer relations, they're also going through how simple is our sign up process? How beautiful is it? How much of this is it? And a lot of people don't think that matters, but people notice consistency. It's the same thing like when you're telling someone a story and they can notice inconsistencies with your story, they don't believe you. So consistency forms trust. We've known this for a long time. When you add on top of it a brand that always does things the same, like has the 4 adjectives always relating to everything, it brings in that cohesion. So it brings everything together. And when they started making choices about social media, we wanted social media. What do we post? It was simple because they knew they needed simplicity, aesthetically pleasing. Those were their 4 objectives, right? They'd go through them. And every single post lined up without having to go through a brander, without having to go through a social media expert or an aggregator. They automatically knew which things to accept or reject. They knew which partners to accept or reject based off of those 4 words. So it really simplified everything for them, I found, which was fantastic.
So those things have to be the cornerstones of decisions and
Mm,
display of the company and how we talk to people as well. So that's really
yes.
cool. I've
Yeah,
um
thank you.
I've learned actually quite a bit just listening to this. So when it comes down to it, is there um is there a path or set of goals? We're really revolving around the question of, what are you doing about it these days? Because you said that you had
Mm,
to sort of take vision out there and the things that you've experienced, you've really appreciated. So what are you doing about it?
well, I've actually already done 3 keynote speeches to larger companies that I thought maybe would like to hear about this. I've always offer, so that exercise I just told you, it's completely complimentary. Um, we offer it for free. We give everyone the forms. We'll walk them through it. It takes like 10 minutes or less for our part. And then after that, the last step is completely up to you. I don't think anyone else should be involved in that one, actually. I think it's that important. It should be purely you because otherwise you get other ideas tainted in. But we offer it for free and we give it to business students at because I'm here in Calgary. We give it to Mount Royal business students before they graduate so that they really know, even if they're not starting a company, they know their personal brand when they're selling themselves, right? Like their resume, their portfolio, their business card, what is their personal brand? So it all lines up and it's completely complimentary that way. So I just believe that it's about time we switched over to that. You know, it we're no longer in the age of ERS for marketing. That was like the 1940s to about the 1960s, and everything was brighter, wider, bigger, better. That was advertising. And then in the 70s, you all of a sudden got a lot of lifestyle and a lot of emotion tied to it, right? The 80s, we actually started getting brands as brands personified. And now in the 2010s to now, there's a serious switchover where we're starting to see people have personal brands And that's why this is so important. If they have a personal brand of a few words, right? Which everyone does, whether or not they realize it, they buy things aligned to their personal brand. So, does this match what I should buy? Does this have a place in my life? Do I see this having a place in my life? Yes or no? Whether they know it or not, they're buying like that. So, if your company has it boiled down to the simplest 3 or 4 words, it's a lot easier to fit into a brand, a personal brand for someone because it's simple. It's got a clear point. Do they want that? Yes or no? If it's a positive brand, right, like has good objectives to it, then often the answer will be yes. It just boils it down even more for them. So it's actually starting to become necessary for success. All the large companies do it. I would say even the smaller companies that I know that succeed tend to be because of that vision that they have, whether they know it or not. But they definitely have a set direction that they go towards all the time with every single thing they do. And that's what determines success now, I think, personally.
That's interesting. So they have a goal and they're unwavering on that, and they understand what
Yes.
will get them there.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. And I
Yeah.
love how you talk about, does this fit into my life? You know, is this the product I should buy when we're thinking about our individual brand? And I'd almost challenge some people here in the audience, because I know a number of you are, and Sarah, I imagine you can do the same thing, is where you sort of step outside yourself, right? And you sort of watch yourself as at a conference, for example. Let's say you go to a conference, but you're actually watching how the conference is working while being
Mm,
being in your actual experience at the same time. And so it's very interesting. I imagine this exact concept without you conceptualizing it so well when I was picking out deodorant one day. And I thought to myself, like, it's interesting. I've always picked this one, but why do I pick it? Right. And I sat there and I looked at all the other
yes.
ones and I was just like, well, why does this one really work for me? And I honestly didn't know anything about the products, like internally or chemically or production wise, or where it's made, or what's the impact of that, or where are my dollars going to, or other things, along those lines. And I sat there and I was just flabbergasted by the amount I didn't know about my consuming process.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I believe this idea could even be about that, right? Like if you want, I'm convinced that at the base of all our behavior is our mental goals connected to our identity, right? So I I do believe in the power of brand that much that if I believe I'm cool, right? I'm more prone to buying cigarettes that display they're cool. If I think I'm smart and intelligent, I'm going to be more prone to buying books, you know? Um, I do think it's underlying everything we do because it's such a strong part of your identity that you'll want anything to align with it. Even people who only have subconscious parts of their identity, right? Like lower self-esteem, well, they're more in tune to getting therapy sessions, whether or not they think they actually need them, um, et cetera, et cetera. Or how much they talk actually is related to that too. Psychology's known that for a while. We just call it branding now instead of identity. So, well, brand identity, but the world's changing for the better, I feel, because we're getting to know that more.
That's really interesting. So how do we fit into this equation as something that feel people should feel empowered by?
Yes, yes, because it gives you control.
You just made an operations guy just get goosebumps, right? Because not just
Good.
see, because we're almost thinking about, like, how do I fit into the supply chain of purchasing, right? And like
Mm,
that. And then additionally, I struggle with, as well as many others, of how do I make it available for people to get involved in something? So how do I make it available for them to buy my product? Is saying, all right,
yes.
I have a favor. My product is, for anyone out there, just a note on sales, since I work in this space a lot. And for anybody listening that you're a veteran, there's a lot I don't know and I'm just starting out. So, roast me, send me comments, anything along those lines. I'd love to know, because it'll be taken in stride in an attempt to learn. So, how do I say, hey, I worked for 3 years to make sure that this favor was available for you. And now I'm here to feed my family by doing that favor for people. That's the idea of a sale to parallel with you. And so it's not that you are trying to get them to buy your product, as far as how I see it, is how can your one product even be a favor for someone? How does it
Hmm.
for someone? And then
Yeah.
that comes to the table of them saying, why is this a product for me? Why do I need this in my life? Where does that fit in? And being considerate of that as a company when designing your product with a core foundation of words and guideposts or swim lanes sounds amazing, Sierra. Like that's as you're linking a
Thank
core
you.
functional process with people and observation and trying to make sure that's a very genuine kind of like, oh yeah, that's a very genuine kind of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Groovy.
Yeah.
I
I only want to go on. Sorry.
I'm digging it. Yeah, I'm getting pumped up.
Good.
Huh.
I'm glad. Yeah, it'll save because you'll find that if they start saying smart on their thing, well, now they're not going to, is it smarter for their clientele? Like, does it seem smarter to have it all on paper? No, right? Smart automatically makes you think things like digitally savvy,
Mm.
um, correct, simple kind of marketing. Now, that scared them when they said smart because they were like, but we don't know what's smart. But here's the magic. Here's where the magic happens. They said that their company was smart, and all of a sudden, they went online. All of a sudden, they went and started doing stuff in like online classes instead of all in person. They streamlined their customer relations. Instead of 5 steps, they have 2, which helps a lot, like a whole lot. So I feel like that's the other thing. People are like, I want it to be this, but my company's not there yet. I think when you were talking about that goal, it is pivotal because the thing is, it's not about the company, it's about the goal, right? So that sounds counterintuitive. If the goal is to be smart,
You're
you
breaking up a little.
don't have to worry about if your company's smart now. We'll be smart, right? We will be. Is this better?
Yes. You don't have to worry
Yes.
now that your company will be smart. Continue on.
Yes. You don't have to worry that your company even is smart or is simple or anything like that yet. It's the goal. So if you set the goal, it's almost a guaranteed. I'm not sure if you guys know Bob Proctor and his work, but he's one of the world's foremost authorities on goal orientation and mindfulness. And what we find is when you put it into your identity that you are smart or your company's smart, all of a sudden, your brain, your subconscious brain is so good at it. If it's in its identity, it will prove it. So it will start making smarter decisions. It will start making aesthetically pleasing decisions. It will start making loyal decisions. If your loyalty is like something that a bank would often choose as one of the words, right? Loyalty, trustworthiness, they'll start making decisions that align with that in every way with their company. And you won't even be aware of all the decisions you're making because it's mostly on autopilot. It's an amazing piece of his research. I highly suggest you guys look at Bob Proctor and his goal orientations and apply them to your business because it guarantees success.
Hmm.
Right? That's the beauty of it is if you do it correctly. I take the courses with hundreds, actually thousands of people. I only hear success stories. I've never heard a non-successful story with his stuff. So I would highly suggest you guys look at that too with your brand alignment in particular. So
Cool. Bob Proctor. I like that name.
yes,
It flows off the tongue nice,
it
actually.
really does.
Um, I feel as though it could be a rap song, actually, Dr. Bob Proctor, something like Mr. Dabalina, from the 90s. So lots of fun there. And
That
so
would work.
and goal orientation.
Yes.
Cool.
Goal orientation. He has business courses. But I found everything I could have used for this was all online for free on YouTube. He does plenty of free material that you guys would probably want to start with.
Cool.
So
It sounds awesome. I really
it
appreciate it.
is.
So what's the questions that you want to ask? What are some of the questions that you want to ask to the audience today to sort of expand upon the topic, and then we'll rein it in here and close down the session.
Okay. I would urge you guys to what are those 3 or 4 words? If you want to have a free list of all those words for you to start with, go ahead and email me at advantagedesign@outlook.com, and we'll just send it to you. No questions asked, no strings attached. And you guys can boil it down and see where you want to expand that business. So, what are your 3 words? What are you willing to do to get there? Right? Is the biggest second question. And then for 3, I'd just ask you all, what is your personal brand? Like Bryant said, it gives you control over your life. So what is your personal brand as well? What are those 3 or 4 words that your life's revolving around at this moment? So
Well, thank you, Sierra. That's
no
fantastic. And
worries.
places on social or other places that people can reach out to you there?
Yes, Advantage Design is on Facebook. It's on Instagram. Instagram, we're called Making Your Vision Reality, because that's our tagline. And that's how important it is to me because we put it in our tagline. We changed that. So I hope you guys connect with us on there. You don't have to, but if you do, it would be awesome.
And then maybe I'll toss another one in is why do people why do people feel as though they have to spend thousands of dollars and put themselves through such suffering as far as not doing what they're really good at doing? Why is this information not available to people? Why is it not concise? Because as you'll notice, the podcasts for anybody listening in, they have a variable length. And some people are very concise, like Sierra today, and some people we take a little bit more time to drift because we need to make sure that we understand it. So we're actually coming in on a quick time here, Sierra, and I want to put that out as a note of appreciation that you're obviously doing something very good in your life.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you.
really gotten very specific about what you want to do. I can understand your process. I understand what you want to do and how you're making lives better, and that's great. If anybody wants to, feel free to reach out to myself, and I'm happy to connect you with Sierra or reach out to her
Thank you.
directly. Places that you talked about. For anybody in the Bluprnt Finding Beautiful Questions or Smart Founders community, we love you guys. You're fantastic. You're a global community of brilliant people solving problems all over the world, and we are very
Okay.
authentic. We do surrender to the outcome, and we do the uncomfortable work to become more authentic, to continue that cycle round and round. And Sierra, the wheels on the bus go round and round. They
Yes.
do. And when you figure out why, and you step back, like I heard the Dalai Lama talk about once, where you have a wheel, and on one side there's a point, and on the other opposite side there's a point, and this is the intention to be right, and this is the intention to learn. And you must sit
Yeah.
almost at the axle of the wheel and observe your life, as both rotate, as both of those things rotate. So I really appreciate the
Smart.
mindfulness and the way you've looped it together here, also with the operations and business model concerns and everything along those lines that support people's families and their dreams. And so that's so cool. Thank you for
Thank you.
today. We're going to be doing some events coming up. So feel free to reach out to us again at anchor.fm, Finding Beautiful Questions, bluprnt.org. And there are no vowels in that except the U because it doesn't work without you. And so until next time, until we have another person with another beautiful question, this is Bryant, your host, signing off, and Sierra. Thank you for your
Thank
time, Sierra.
you.
All right, bye.